Hi, Dr. Rob. So we're going to start right off. The first question. Hi, Dr. Rob. Is recovery possible for an addict who once took advantage of a drunk friend? The incident happened approximately 5 years ago. Would you advise against forgiving the addict even if he is in recovery and he deeply regrets his actions? I truly believe that he is sorry and that he is committed to recovery, but I also worry that I'm crazy for trying to see the good in this person. Is it too late for him?
Wow. Well, I don't think it's too late for anyone, unless they are so disturbed that we're not a, they're just so psychologically damaged that they can't get help. But I never think it's too late. Tammy and I have had people in our treatment center who are in their mid 70s who just don't want to be that person anymore, and they will do whatever it takes to get better. So just the first part of your question, I absolutely believe that what it takes is commitment and motivation. If someone's committed and motivated and have the intellectual ability to grasp this, the rest will be fine. But the other question about rape, which is what you're talking about, right? Your husband raped somebody or whoever this man is, and you're trying to figure out how to deal with that. And by the way, that is what it's called when you have sex with someone and do not get consent. Even if you've been dating, if you've been making out, someone isn't awake or says, I'm not sure, that's what it is. So what you're really saying is, can this man live with himself after what he's done, and can he heal? Tammy, your thoughts before?
Addiction is an excuse. It can be a reason, but you know, if I didn't believe that there was hope and forgiveness for all of us, at the end of the day, whether you forgive him or not, I hope he learns to forgive himself. That's where it has to, there has to be some of that, because otherwise that shame is just going to be, the impetus for relapse. So it doesn't make the incident not have happened. It doesn't make it okay, but forgiveness is from a very different place. It isn't forgive and forget. It's like, that was really horrible. That was, that was traumatic. That was like all the negative words you can think of. But at the end of the day, I'm now responsible. I'm living in recovery. I have to do what I need to do to make amends to the best of my ability. And sometimes that isn't with the person. They don't want to have any part of it, So
Especially here, especially
yeah,
here.
yeah. It isn't like the person that was raped, has to absolve him of what he did. But hopefully that person has had trauma help and is healing it, as well. So whether you forgive him or not, I'm glad he's in recovery. He stands no chance if he's not in recovery. And and forgiveness is, I really believe this for myself. Forgiveness is what I do for me, not for the other person. So forgiveness for me unloads the burden of of all the negative energy. It doesn't make them all okay, but it helps me heal me, even through circumstances. So
And
your
and I want to say
thoughts?
something about forgiveness. Uh, I may want forgiveness because I've hurt somebody. It doesn't mean it's their job to give it to me. There may be
Correct.
things that I've done that for some people are not forgivable, but I can find forgiveness with others. Someone can say, I'm really sorry you did that. It's really awful. What can you do to make it better? And I'll say, well, I'm going to volunteer for a kids club for a year and just help underprivileged kids, because I can't fix that, but I can help the world be a better place. We call it a living amends, where you can't necessarily go to the other person, apologize, forgiveness because of what's happened, but you can go out and live your life like somebody who wants to make a difference, and that can be part of it. There's another piece that I wanted to say, which is not as friendly and kind of sweet as what Tammy said, which is more about, you got to call it as you see it. And this guy didn't take advantage of a woman who was drinking, he raped her. And I think for us as addicts, we have to come to terms with the reality of what we've done. There is no forgiveness or understanding if I'm just writing it off as, well, she was drunk and I wasn't thinking. No, you raped her, and that means that I am capable of raping people. And that's where he has to get to, is seeing how bad he can get. Because to say, well, it was one time and I won't do that again, and how do I make it feel better, is not to come into the reality of what I actually did. And we would rather look for forgiveness and how can we make this better, and then and by the way, that's what we do in treatment. I'm not saying rub your nose in it, but a lot of people a lot of folks we work with don't fully get I'm looking for a word, the amount of damage they've done. They don't get the whole picture. They don't, and that's our job, is to say, wait, did you look at this part? I was talking to a couple recently, and there were the reason they were calling because of sexual acting out. But when I listened to their story, it was like, oh, this is a really abusive relationship. Oh, these people are really not kind to each other. And so the issues can be much bigger than simply that thing that they did. Um, but I don't think you can forgive. I don't think you can move on until you've really owned to yourself and others, as hard as that may be, what you've actually done.
Yeah, and I agree, because otherwise there's always that piece that's in the dark closet that is, that you're not attending to. So you on the, internally know that there's more, and that's not forgivable until you bring it out. And I agree. You cannot minimize, you cannot, this has to be, in recovery, it's about honesty. When we're doing a 4-step,
Integrity.
yeah, when we're doing a 4-step, it's an honest inventory of ourselves. It isn't like, well, I'm going to say these things and just put those out there, and I'm going to hold all this stuff back. Then we relapse. Then we're not even in the recovery. So that's
Did I
very
ever tell you?
painful. So go
Did I
ahead.
ever tell you, Tammy, when I had to work on that in the first time, and my sponsor said, "So, what people have you heard, and what do you think has happened to you?" And I was like, "I hadn't heard anybody." It never even crossed my mind. It took years to understand how much I'd heard and what I'd done, and all of that stuff. By the way, there is one more thing about what we were saying earlier, is that um, if you cannot acknowledge the degree to which you're capable of harming other people, that's a problem. And the people that are in treatment, the ones I worry about the most, and I mean the most, are the ones that say, I'm not going to do that again, or I've learned my lesson. Or if you're an addict, you can't say that ever. What you can say is, I'm working really hard in a very conscious way to make sure that I don't do that again. But you can't say I won't, because you have a problem that you have a chronic emotional condition, addiction, without proper support and maintenance, will return to where it was, just like diabetes or any other chronic medical issue. So you have to be able to fully acknowledge how bad it can be, and how far I can go, and how much I can be the person I never wanted to be, in order to be able to come back and say, wow, I understand why I'm working this hard, because that was my bottom.
Well, and I also have fear when people say, I need to control this. I need to, I'm going to learn how to control this, because,
Right.
like you're saying, it's like we have to understand and always be cognizant of what we are capable of and where we could go, and do what we need to do. I always say, when I'm doing my 12-step meetings, when I'm doing my recovery work, I'm putting my little insurance policy in that just for today, I can remain in recovery. Okay, ready for the next one?
Yeah, I'm just answering someone's chat. Go ahead.
Okay, so my sex addiction, my sex addict husband acted out mostly with professionally successful and intelligent women from hookup apps, never paid sex workers. Can you talk about the attention, approval seeking aspect of this style of sexual acting out? Does this need for approval have a connection to childhood neglect? That's a really interesting question.
Well, but it's like three questions.
I know.
So
Okay, so
can you
let's
break
talk
that one
about,
down, and we'll
yeah.
try them one at a time?
So this person hooked up with intelligent,
Yeah, I got
professional
that.
women, not hookups. Can you talk about attention, approval seeking aspect of this style of acting out? Is the first question.
All sex addicts and love addicts and all of porn, we are all approval seeking. We're all validation seeking. Some of us are so afraid to approach people about that we just sit with paper dolls on computers and look at them. But we feel something like wanted, desired, validated, even with paper dolls, no less other people. So I don't really see a difference I don't see a difference in the way it would affect me as a spouse or as a partner, to know that some person saw sex workers, or they were having short-term affairs, or had, people they slept with occasionally, or long. I mean, it wouldn't matter to me on some level, because it's all the same thing. I am hurt, I am violated, I'm abused. So from the perspective of the partner, I think it's all the same. However, if there was an emotional context and there were emotional pieces of the affair, then as a partner, you're going to be much more devastated, because it's hard enough that you had sex with people, but did you care about them is a much more painful thing for spouses. There's another part of that question. Hold on a second.
Does the need for approval have a connection
Right.
to childhood neglect?
So it can be many things. And I'll give you the opposite. I was not neglected. I had a mother who would never let go of me. She was focused on everything I did all the time, and I had to get away from her. So for me, and I think some of us, It's not about, it is for some of us a neglect. Let me put it a different way. Our needs get neglected. It doesn't mean our
Mm.
caregivers don't try, or they're not doing their best, or they didn't think everything they thought was right for us in their best way of doing it. But our needs were not met, whatever we are. And so we start finding different ways to get it done. And that's how it happens. So different people have different ways of acting out. For example, some people want really high numbers that are anonymous. I don't know the person. I just have sex with them. I don't know their last name. And I can go through lots of people. Well, that tells me a little bit about what their issues are. Because imagine the person who wants to do things that doesn't have anything to do with their home. It's completely out there. It's completely separate. I know other people who act out with a babysitter. They act out with a grocery clerk. They act out with everyone who's around them. And that's a very different, then I would think maybe incest or different kinds of abuse where sex was all around you. And so each one of these different things has different kinds of origins, and mostly they come down to neglect, but not neglect like food and shelter, and it's much more emotional neglect. Many of us had a nice meal on the table, toys, but there wasn't anybody who really was there for us emotionally. They might have been there physically, or they might have tried to be emotionally there for us, but in ways that didn't meet our needs. So neglect of who I am and what I need can come in many forms. It can come in someone not being there. It can come in someone being there too much. It can come by someone getting so upset when I say something and it becomes all about them and then my need. I mean, there are many ways that neglect can occur. A colleague of ours wrote a book on neglect. Tammy, you're reaching into the sky. I want you to know that.
I know, but
It's called Neglect, the Silent Abusers by a friend of ours named Enid Gray. And I think it's quite a good book on neglect because and let me something more about, I'm not saying full sentences. Let me say something more about neglect. It is one of the hardest things to come to terms with from your past. I have worked with people who said, I wish that my mom hit me. And then I could say, that's what happened to me because it's so identifiable. Or my dad left for 6 years and nobody, but to say I was neglected, that's the absence of something. Neglect is something that should have happened but didn't. Well, if you're little, you don't know what's supposed to happen. You just know what is happening. So it's much harder to recognize something that didn't happen that should have happened than it is that something that did happen. And so people who were, harmed often find it easier to understand what they're dealing with than people who were simply not attended to emotionally.
so somebody chimed in the chat. It's an amazing book. Enid Gray also did a podcast with Dr. Rob on Sex, Love, and Addiction podcast, which you can find on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, along with lots of other great content. So I would encourage you to buy the book, but also perhaps start with the podcast. Okay, next question. Why are some sex addicts open to getting help while others stay stuck in shame and denial? I wish I had the answer to that one. It's so sad for me when I just see it, and I go, anyway, so please tell us, Dr. Rob, why?
Why does the sky, why? I feel like I'm in some 50s song. There are lots of reasons. I mean, some people don't have the emotional and psychological capability to get out. They just don't know how. They don't have the resources. They're not smart enough. They have emotional challenges and they're not able to find their way out. So some people simply can't get the help because they're not capable of it. Some people are so reactive, narcissistic, and emotionally damaged that they're not able to take responsibility for their behavior. And it's always somebody else's fault. And why are you bothering me about that? And so there are some people who are incapable from an emotional standpoint of listening and taking it in, and they're going to be harder to work with. So as much as I hate to say it, Tammy and I would agree that there are a number of treatment centers that have they're large organizations. We're very small. So we see 8 people, 7 people. There's lots of reasons for that. And one of the reasons is that if you have sex addiction and you've had certain kinds of issues and you've certain kind of past, then you can go into these large programs because they're kind of cookie cutter and you can go through and get everything you need. And if you're motivated and reasonably intelligent and you really want to get better, you will. But there are a lot of people who have mental health issues, emotional issues, different kinds of trauma, learning, just all kinds of stuff, and they need different kinds of care. And what really upsets me is when people say, I went to treatment, I didn't get better. That's not really true. Tam, I used to work at a very expensive treatment center. I didn't start it. I don't believe in expensive treatment centers, but I worked there. And one of the things I would see is that people go to treatment, alcohol and drugs, and then 3 months later or a month, they'd relapse. And I would say to myself, how can we charge? I said to my boss, how can we charge people all this money if people are going out and relapsing? And he said, don't you realize that the research says that once someone has gone through treatment, they may or may not relapse, but they do it less. They do it in less dangerous ways. They're much more aware of the consequences. So what you get from treatment is a whole lot of information that ruins the behavior. So I may act out sexually after I've really worked on this and gone through treatment. But the difference is before treatment, I could say it's not hurting anyone. It doesn't matter. After treatment, I know exactly how my behavior is affecting other people. And so we say in treatment, by the way, we ruin the addiction for you. You can, all of them, you can go back to it, but it will never be the same again because you know what you're doing and how it's affecting you and other people. So that was a lot of answers to, I don't even know if I answered
Yeah,
your question, but
well,
it's so,
I-
there's every reason. I mean, every
yeah,
reason, there's no one reason.
yes.
Oh, one more
Okay.
thing I will say about that.
Yeah.
I have never seen a human being move off the dime around profound issues in their life unless they were in pain. Pain is our motivator. And I'm so sorry to say that. So someone's annoyed with you, you shouldn't do it. They're kind of, someone says they're going to leave you. All of a sudden we get really busy because I often say to the men, both in the treatment center and and women who I've worked with for many years, and I asked them why they came into treatment. And, I want to be a better person. I don't want to hurt my kids anymore. I haven't been available. But why are you coming to treatment? Because you could have wanted that 3 years ago, 6 years ago. Well, my wife just found out. Well, this happened at work. Well, that's the pain. That's what's driven people into treatment. Because if you really wanted to work on this, you worked on it before. But what drove you to get help is you're in trouble. Now, what happens while getting the help is oftentimes people become aware, I need to work on this for me. I need to do this for me. This is my problem, not theirs. And I'm inflicting my problem on them. And that's a lot of the road. So, by the way, I'll say this, a lot of people don't get it, and then they do. A lot of people never get it. I always say, don't, what is it? I can't say this right, but basically, don't expect the miracle. I've seen people go through 9 days of treatment, 10 days, 11 days. On the 12th day, they woke up and they got it. It was like, oh my God, I thought this person would never get it. Or there's some people I don't think get it at all. And they call me 3 months later and said, so you just don't know. It really depends on how much pain that person's in, how motivated they are, how good the treatment they're getting. And really good treatment is about making someone less comfortable, not more comfortable. I want people to be less comfortable with what they're doing and question what they're doing because it was just too comfortable before to go ahead and do this and not see how it's affecting other people. So the treatment process is hard because you got to look at things and look at yourself in ways that you never wanted to. And that is the greatest gift that we can give you is clarity.
Clarity and freedom, because I always say too, people are carrying around 100 pounds of shame and guilt, that they've been holding back. So having the ability to process through that, it's a game changer. So, okay, next question. How do you discern misogynistic, abusive behavior from sex addiction?
Well, so addiction has certain criteria or characteristics that always go with addiction. It doesn't matter whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling or gaming or sex or whatever it is. Number one, the person is obsessed with it. It becomes a primary focus of their life. They are not home on time. They're not attending their families. They're leaving work early. They're looking at porn in the workplace. So their primary responsibility is to education, to friends, to recreation, to work, to family, all come second to, can I go out and have that experience or can I get to the porn? And we know this because we hide it. We keep it secret. We don't even want to know, this is our little thing. The other signs of addiction are that I've clearly had some consequences. Someone got angry at me. I got caught at work before. Someone at IT said the porn is not, something happened, or a series of things happened that led me to believe that this was not a good idea, but I kept doing it anyway. So despite the consequences that I'm having, I keep doing it. So I'm obsessed with it. I know there may be consequences and I do it anyway. And then when the consequences come, I keep going. So someone who's misogynistic and abusive, there can be addictive patterns of rage and abuse. But I don't think that sex addicts in and of themselves who are straight are necessarily misogynistic. Sex addicts take advantage of people. We use people. We objectify people. I will use women or men day in and day out. But in my right mind, when I'm not addictively acting out, I can have great respect for women or men. I can be, in fact, that dichotomy, that challenge between looking at the fact that many of us may admire, appreciate, value, everything about women, and especially the women in our lives who we love, and then do things to completely screw them over at the same time. That's, by the way, the problem. You want to start to define the problem is my life is split into parts. And I'm the only one who actually knows all of the parts. Everyone else only gets a little bit, which, by the way, makes us crazy. We go crazy with that. More questions?
Yes. Okay. So the next question is, why do some men feel like they have to get the attention of any pretty girl that walks by?
Well, there's a reason we're men. So we're moving out of sex addiction now, and we're moving into what men might want in general. So we have this thing called testosterone, and it's why we go to jail for violence and we go to jail for sexual behavior, and you ladies not so much, because you will tend to act in toward yourselves. You'll tend to drink, to cut on yourselves, to get depressed. Not that you don't act out too with alcohol and other things, but we act out with sex and rage and violence, and because of all that testosterone we have, that kind of drives us into that state. So there is the piece of men are highly visual as sexual beings, much more than women. That's why we like porn. That's why we like strip clubs. We like to look. So if you put a man in a place of walking down the street and someone he's attracted to, male or female, he is going to check that person out and he is going to sexualize them because he's a man. And that's what we do, right or wrong, good or bad. But the question is really not about that. The question is much more about, do I need that person to pay attention to me? Not do I just notice them, but I need them to notice me. And yeah, I think that is more about I'm insecure. I don't feel a sense of power. I don't feel desirable, whatever that is. And so I will get this woman to acknowledge me, which will give me the things that I'm missing or I feel like I'm missing. Like I feel important. I feel special. I feel wanted. I feel desired. I get a lot of needs met by getting that person to pay attention to me. Now, there's no meaning in that. There's no real flesh on that bone. There's no nurture or nutrition in getting someone to look at me, but sex addicts think there is, because we're on the floor picking up crumbs while everyone behind us is at the banquet. So every little crumb we can get of attention, or that's what we're looking for, especially validation that people were attracted to. And by the way, ladies, I want to say something to you about men and about gay men in particular. Many of you think, oh, well, those gay guys, they're my friends. They're sweet. They don't treat women like this. And you're right. But I'll tell you what, when I'm walking down the street with a bunch of guys and we see a really attractive 24-year-old man, the gay guys are like, look at the butt on him. Look at those arms. Woohoo. So we're exactly the same. We just do it with a different gender. So we're no different than us straight guys. It's just we do our hooting and our calling out for a different gender. But we're very kind to you ladies. So you think, oh, well, gay guys, they're not like that. We're men. We're all like this. And in fact, I'll take it a little bit further outside of sex addiction. And I mean outside of it. One of the greatest challenges, I think, for our culture is for women to have a better understanding of men's sexuality, who we are, what we desire, where we come from. This is completely aside from sex addiction. I mean, ladies, we know what you want. You want flowers, you want candy, you want attention, you want love, you want to be the only one. Believe me, everyone in the world has taught us what women want. Do you really care who we are? No. You don't want to know that we really want to look at everyone on the street or man, but we do. You don't want to hear that we want to fuck everyone who's attractive, but we do. You don't want to hear how much we sexualize other people and want to be with them because you believe, as a woman would, because of how you're built, that if we look at that, we're not interested in you. Completely separate thing. For men can go to strip clubs and Vegas and lap dances, and it has nothing to do with our relationship. We really can feel that way because for us, it was just a lap dance. It was just this or that, nothing to do with my family, my life, because men are able to compartmentalize sex in our brains, healthiest of men, and say, this is sex and this is sex and love. So when we have sex, we can have it for two different reasons or three. One, we can have it because we love someone. One, we can have it because we're turned on by someone. And I guess the third would be because we love them and we're turned on by them. But we are perfectly capable, in case y'all didn't know this, of men of having sex with people that we don't care anything about because we're interested in the sex. This is hard for women to understand. Healthy women generally look more toward relationship and connection and feeling safe with someone. Um, and that leads them into sex. Caring, connection. And I certainly understand. Some of you ladies just want to go out and get laid. I get that. When I was younger, it is what it is. But at a certain point, healthy women kind of want more, and they want connection, and they want, and any partners do, by the way. God, I'm going off and off on this question. Tammy, I'm getting lost. So I like what
No,
I said,
you were
but
talking, no, I do too. I'm following along. So you're talking about women and, healthy.
oh, right.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that we're different than you, and that you may read into, and I'm not talking about sex addiction. I'm not talking about multiple cheating and porn. You have to hear me. I'm talking about healthy men and women. Healthy, not cheating, not lying, none of that. A healthy man might go look at another woman, might get a lap dance, and it doesn't mean that he doesn't love you. It does mean they may not respect you or respect the vows that he made. But we really, men, all men, have a great capability of separating sex and love. So imagine if we are fooling around with someone in Vegas and we get a lap dance, we know you're not going to like it. We don't tell you. We say things like, well, all the other guys went to get the lap dance at the bachelor party, but I went back to the hotel to talk to you, honey, because I knew you wouldn't like that. We're lying. We went to the strip club with everybody else because we're men and that's what we do. We just don't want to tell you. So even the healthiest man will engage in sexual behavior outside his relationship and not want to tell his partner, and at some level not believe that on any level it would affect his partner. And you know what? That's true, because it's over there for us and it's like a good workout on some level. But boy, when you ladies hear about it, and understandably so, you do not separate sex from love. You do not, for the most part, separate running around and having sex unless you're connected to someone you're interested. So imagine if I go out and have sex with a stranger and I'm married to you, and your perspective is pretty much you don't have sex with people unless you care about them, because I don't. Well, guess what? Men and women think differently, and we are built differently. And although you as a lady or a woman might have liked some casual sex when you're younger, but now you only enjoy sex through connection, I will enjoy casual sex my whole life. And I'm not talking about sex addiction. I'm talking about my desire as a man to go mate with as many people as I can. That's biological. So who we are as men biologically is different than who you ladies are. And you can take all the addiction out of it, and we will still do things to upset you, because we don't look at sex and relationships and intimacy in the same way that you do, because we're men. So this is part of the challenge for you gender mixed couples, is that you don't fully understand where the other person is coming from. Now, I'm not saying it's okay for me to go to the strip club in Vegas, but and I'm not talking about addiction, but I do mean if I come home and say, honey, I went to I got a lap dance when I was at bachelor party, you may be upset, you may be angry, you may feel disrespected, but it doesn't mean I don't care about you or love you, or you're not the most important person in my life. It's just that men think differently. Now, none of the ladies, Tammy, are going to like this. Do you have any, since you are a lady and you're here with me, is there anything you want to say to balance out? I mean, this is what sex school is about, is understanding the hormonal and biological differences between men and women that many of us don't even want to pay attention to, because it's all about love. So, but
Well,
that's
you
not true.
you have shared before, and I would love to have you comment on it again. Of how quickly women, because you're like, don't sleep around, because here's how quickly you get connected. So,
Oh,
so would you share more about that, Dr. Rob?
sure. So deep connections with other people, emotion, are start out as a biological function. So, for example, one of the ways that people bond in the most powerful way is when a woman is holding a child in her arms and she's looking it down, the child's looking this way and the mother's looking that way, and they're looking at each other. She is feeling great love and affection. That's something called oxytocin. It is the neurochemical that drives bonding. In fact, with people who have Asperger's and have challenges with bonding, they're experimenting with oxytocin as a way to make them feel socially engaged. For you druggies out there, one of the things that MDMA and ecstasy, at least in their original forms, released a lot of was oxytocin. So anybody who does MDMA and ecstasy just feels love. I love you. I love everyone. It's all love, love, because that's what it's releasing in the brain. So women release oxytocin. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up. So, in any movie, when you see these people look across a crowded room and they see each other and it's moonbeams and starlight and they can't think about it, that's the neurochemical bonding of a new love, new connection. And sex, especially for women, ties that bond tighter. And let me explain how. This is what Tommy wants me to say. Oxytocin is our bonding hormone. Ladies, if you have sex with a man or a woman, you start releasing oxytocin in your vaginas. That's how endemic, how built in it is for you to start to bond. Your grandmother was right. When you start having sex with us, you start getting emotionally involved and you lose sight of who we are. Don't have sex with us right away. We'll have sex with you because we love sex and it doesn't have anything to do with emotion for us unless it does. But for you, once you start having sex with us, you get emotionally engaged. And so you really, unlike us, we can, okay, men are a little bit like dogs. We do just want to climb on top of that thing and do it. I'm not talking about sex addiction. I'm talking about natural. We don't necessarily do it, but we want to. And then our intelligent, older, mature brain comes on and says, wait a minute, I'm married and I'm in a relationship and I have kids and I don't want to do that unless you're a sex addict. But our first thought is always, I want to climb on top of that. And then later our brain kicks in and says, I'm not sure that's a good idea, or let's go for it. Not so much you ladies. When you get excited emotionally and sexually, you start thinking. We have research about this. We turn into, how can I get on top of that? Excuse me, I had to do that. But you ladies are like, oh, he seems really nice. I'm really attracted. I'm really aroused by him. I wonder if he's a nice person. I wonder if we're going to get along. So you guys move into this kind of inner detective, which is really a saving mechanism for women, because if you allowed your sexual arousal to influence your decisions, you would get raped, you would get abused, you'd have sex with men who leave you pregnant. So you ladies have to think, and biologically, you do think healthy women. Women think through who they're being with. Is this a good decision? Can I detach myself from the sex? Unhealthy women, people who have abuse or all that kind of stuff, think sex is love. Think sex is power. They just think about it very differently. So tell me, that was a lot of stuff. I got a
Yeah, well,
PhD studying all that stuff. Is there
I
anything
know
else
you
about
did.
that you
Well,
wanted
the
me to
only thing
mention?
I do, because someone put in a comment, how hurtful this is as a betrayed partner. They find
Yes,
that this is devastating. So is there any, because you've been clear, this is how men think, and then you just,
it is.
tied in, a thinking man who's not a sex addict is going to go, yeah,
We can
might
make
sound like fun.
choices.
Exactly. So
It's
thank you.
okay. You got to live with this, ladies. Our first look and thought is, that looks good. I want some. Hopefully our second thought is, I have other things that are important to me. There are other things that matter to me. So our intellectuals, first we come from a lower brain, which is, I want some. And then we immediately go up to our higher brain, our thinking brain, which says, yeah, but unless you're a sex addict, because sex addicts stay in this lower part of our brain. We're not able, literally not able to think clearly, because when we're pursuing the sex, the affair, whatever it is, we're getting pumped up with adrenaline and endorphins, and we are all excited and really have tunnel vision about what we're going to do sexually. So all I'm saying, and Tammy, your question was, and I forgot, I'm going to repeat it. Yes, it is unsettling for every woman to understand that that's how we're built. I am so sorry. I think it's better that you ladies more fully understand us. You understand when I'm walking down the street and I look at another woman or man that it really isn't about you, but you will take it personally. Sex addicts don't get to do that. So let me try it on this way. If you're a sex addict, it's like being an alcoholic. I can't, if I'm an alcoholic, go to certain places, hang out with certain people. Maybe I can't be at dinners where there's lots of wine. I have to watch out to not end up back in the toilet with my life. So sex addicts, just because my first thought is have sex with a person, and then my next thought is how do I do it? This is why we're in recovery. This is why we work on these things, to have a moment to sit back and say, wow, I want to do that, but I'm not going to. And all addicts are missing that voice. That's what treatment is about. That's our work, is because the ability to have this emotional response and then not act on it, but think my way through it, is the challenge of addiction, because we have emotional responses and we just act on it. But yeah, sorry, ladies, that's how we're built. And I'll tell you one other thing about how you're built. I have been writing for 6 or 8 years for Psychology Today. In fact, I'll brag, I have 18 million readers, 18 million so far. That's with an M. But I already know, as you know, because I see the stats, when do I have a blog that is popular? because I write every week. So they tell me, and I can tell you that if I put one of 3 words in the title of my blog, that the number will go up exponentially. Now, let's go back for a second. Who reads Psychology Today blogs? Women. Who buys self-help books? Women. Men think we already have it together. We don't read that stuff. You guys bring it to us. 95% of all self-help books are bought by women. Not that we don't need them. It's just we're not interested. So if 95% of women read my column, which is called, by the way, Sex and Love in the Digital Age, and I put the word infidelity or cheating or adultery in the title of the article, the numbers go up exponentially. You ladies have a radar on all the time to see if in any way your nest is being violated, your home is going to be taken away from you. You are very interested, ladies, unlike us men, in reading articles about cheating and infidelity, and you have a nose for this because your fear is that we're going to be doing this because you kind of underneath know who we are. This is a great balance between men and women, by the way. You're worried about what we're going to do. We see your worry and concern, and even though we want to do it, we don't. That's healthy people. So I am sorry to say to you ladies, the reality of that, yes, men objectify you, in case you didn't know that. Doesn't mean we have to exchange, doesn't mean we have to engage you, but we do see it and we do feel it. And then if we're reasonably healthy, we make other decisions. This is the problem with being a sex addict. You don't make other decisions. You see it, you want it, and you do
Okay, we've got a
it.
bunch
People
of
are upset by
questions.
that. They had feelings
Well,
about that, I
yeah,
bet.
yeah, and understandably, but I think you've given a really well-rounded,
Oh, okay.
information about this.
Sorry. Someone asked a question. Yes, all men oogle. All men. Sorry, we all do. We may do it in a second, but that's how we're built. So someone said, is it not a conclusion? I have the research. I can tell you tooth and nail, this is how men are. So yes, so this is a perfect example. I want to read what this person said. I won't say who it is. I'm talking about how men and women express themselves biologically around sex. I'm not talking about feelings or emotions, but how we are built. And this person said, I hope it's not your conclusion that just because he ogled does not mean all men ogle. Yes, we do. We all deserve to have a partner who can show up for us. Yes, you do. Dr. Rob has talked often about having a posse to help pick a good person to date. That's true. But it is true that
I
we're
put
also,
that in there in the chat. I was
oh,
answering
sorry.
somebody else. And like I think ogling, I think I am loath to use my husband, but I think he appreciates beauty and everything else. I have no problem with that. But he doesn't go,
Right.
and that to me is
And he
ogling.
doesn't plan after you've met with that person
Correct.
to go
Yes.
back later.
Correct. So I don't think all men ogle, because I think ogling is the,
Staring.
yeah, yeah. I mean, noticing and appreciating, I 100% understand that. Like, there
And
are,
we're visual.
I'm heterosexual. I see a pretty woman and I think, wow, she is like stunning, like I just appreciate beauty. That does not mean, anything beyond any of that type of thing.
Well, but I
So
will
that
say
was
that
my comment on that.
but for us, it's not just the beauty. It's the boobs, it's the legs, it's the butt. We will say to you, oh my God, she's so pretty. But we'll think to ourselves, I really want a piece of that because that's how men are. And it
I'm gonna
doesn't
have an
mean we have
interesting
to
conversation with
act
my
on
husband
it.
tonight. So,
Yeah, but
okay,
it doesn't, but
no,
it,
right, I get
you
it,
know
but
what?
yeah,
It isn't our job to tell you everything we look at. It's our job to tell you if we've hurt, to talk to you if we hurt you, let you down, disappointed you. But please, we look, it just means we're human. It doesn't mean we don't respect you. If we stare, that's a whole different story.
so, and there's now a comment, your next book should be How to Turn Betrayed Spouses to Lesbians. So that way we don't have to worry about all of this in our next relationship, hate men.
Well,
And I'm like, oh, that's
how
so
about
horrible.
get
That's so
involved with a
different.
healthy, get involved
Go
with a
ahead.
healthy person, and you won't have that problem. Most men are not like that, but they will look.
Correct.
So you ladies are, this is the challenge. You ladies are going to have to get over, all of you, the fact that this is what, okay, I started this by saying this. The problem in the culture is that men understand women's sexuality pretty well, but women do not want to understand men's sexuality. That is true. You don't want to know what we look at, how we think about it, and we don't tell you because we know you don't want to hear about it. So we don't tell you. We would get in trouble. Does that mean we're having sex with other people? No. Does that mean we're looking at porn all the time? No. Does that mean we're hitting on people? No. But it does mean that we do have attractions to have sex with people other than you. And we have them often because we're men, and that's what testosterone does, and that's how we're built. We're very visual. Do we avoid it when you're around? Do we try to play it down? Do we not make you want to feel uncomfortable? Absolutely. Are there times when we're looking more and more into it and other times when we're not? Sure. But addiction is looking all the time, not regarding you at all, not caring what you think. It's a whole different level of. So, by the way, do you think lesbians don't objectify? I've walked down the street with a bunch of lesbians, so look at the butt on her. So, I'm not sure that would keep you so safe. Just saying.
Okay. Next question. My sex addiction husband says he knows he is an addict and knows he needs help, but his actions speak differently as he is not actively seeking any help. How long on average after discovery of being an SA do they normally take to get help? It's been a year since, oh, he found out he was an SA.
Okay, so the question is, how long does it take for someone who has just figured out that they have a problem and maybe it's come out as some kind of disclosure? How long does it take for them to get active and healing? Is that the question?
Yeah. So it's been a year since
Right,
he figured out he's an SA,
right.
and he hasn't, his actions have done
Okay,
nothing.
so I don't think this is someone who believes that. Let me try it differently. I think this is a man who believes you'll put up with this. You'll put up with it. And you don't know whether he's doing it or not. And so it's only his word. And so if he just keeps saying, I'm not doing it anymore, but and I'll put off the. Addicts never heal by themselves. I was in a group with some, I was at our treatment center with some of the guys today. We're probably online tonight. Hi, guys. And, you know, they were just talking about this thing about, about um, what motivated him to get help. And as I said earlier, it has to be, so there's two issues. One, he doesn't really care about you and he's keeping you around it for convenience. Or two, he doesn't really understand the degree of hurt or harm he's caused. And let me tell you something about us sex addicts and relationships. When we are looking to have sex with strangers or an affair partner or a porn or whatever it is, we put you down, we devalue you. He or she is too fat. He or she isn't interested in me. I'm not having enough sex. We blame you in our heads because that gives us an opportunity to feel entitled to go do what we do. Well, if I had better sex in my relationship, well, if I had this, I have that. In other words, we blame you for what we want to go do. And that's very typical for our issues. So if I'm still in that place of it's not my fault, it's just something I do. And if I just decide to stop, I'll be able to stop, then I'm probably never going to get any help. And I would say to you that if you have sat around for a year and let this man get away with not getting help, then I would ask you, what's going on with you? Why would you sit around waiting for this person to finally decide if he wants to call? How about if you don't get some help, I'm out of here, or you need to sleep in the other room, or whatever it is. So I told you that what people respond to is pain. And if that man is not in enough pain around what he has to lose in relationship to you or his family, he's going to do whatever the heck he wants. And this man believes that he can still do what he wants because you are still taking it. So my question would be, how much longer are you willing to live with someone who lies to you, manipulates you, seduces you, and is not getting any help with it, and probably is still lying to you? How long are you going to take that? How long? And Tammy hears me say this all the time. You ladies are way too easy on us. You make way too many excuses. And that is because you want to stay in relationship. You want to stay connected. It's home, it's family, and you love us. But we don't have enough consequences from you. Not at all. You should throw our butts out on the street. You should call lawyers. Doesn't mean you're not going to let us back in or you're going to divorce us, but we need to know how serious this is for you and what you're willing to do. And some of you are hopeful and desirous, and maybe he'll see how much it hurt me, and that'll. No, we need to be in enough pain to move. And what's interesting about us is that we will devalue you in a desire to go act out. They're not, like I said, they're not thin enough, they don't pay attention to me enough, so I deserve this over there. So we can have no interest in you in our minds. But if you move 1 inch away from us because you're mad at us, like I'm thinking about having you on sleep on the couch, or I'm calling a lawyer, maybe that'd be a few inches. Boy, do we wake up. Oh my God. And it's because we don't have control anymore. You are making decisions for your own life about what's good for you. And we suddenly realize that if we can't pull the chain and you're going to shut up anymore, that you have your own mind and you're going to make your own decisions. And that if we don't listen, we might lose you. And though that is so I will say this, Tammy and I know this, we get referrals for our treatment center. Sometimes therapists refer, sometimes people have problems, they want to get help. But the number one referral for us by far is partners. husbands and wives who cannot take this anymore from the person they love, and they say either you get some help or I'm out of here. Now, some people don't have the resources to break up. They don't have a lawyer. They don't can't afford it. They can't afford therapy. They have to sit with each other and deal with it. And for a woman who has to deal with it, I think what happens is you either leave your heart open to this person, or you go and you have your own life without them, despite the fact that you're living together. And I that is why we do this, for people who don't have resources, to be able to help some of you who don't. But if I have the resources to go to therapy and go to groups and get support, and I have hurt you and I'm not doing it, then I don't deserve to be in your house. And if you're willing to let me do it and not say you don't deserve to be in my house, I will keep taking advantage of you. So the question goes back on you. When are you willing to stand up for your soul, for your heart, for your family, and say, you don't get to be here unless you're working on this. You've hurt me enough, and you need to go basically in the corner. You get out of here. And that's when we move. When we realize that the jig is up, we're not in charge, you are, and we may not be able to hold on to everything and keep juggling all these balls because they're falling on the ground, and we realize we're not that good at juggling. When we see all our family and our friends and our lives on the ground in pieces, that's usually when we show up for help. In case you're not aware, men, here's another men thing. We don't like to ask for directions. We don't like to ask for help. We want to do it ourselves. We want to figure it out on our own. And fortunately, the way we're able to do that is a lot of support from the people around us, but we think we can figure it out. And I, by the way, was one of those guys pre-Google Maps who would drive around downtown trying to figure out where I was going for 2 hours, but I damn sure wasn't going to ask somebody how to get there because I was going to figure it out. So, we already feel like we don't need help. We can figure it out. We can handle it. And that doesn't bode well for paying attention and doing the things that we are told to do. But in the circumstances that involve addiction, we don't know how to change it. We don't know how to get better. And him saying to you, well, I'm going to work on and get better, doesn't mean anything. Ladies and gentlemen, our words don't mean anything at this point. The only thing that matters is our actions. And so if this person is doing nothing after a year, what he's telling you is, I don't care about you at all. I don't care how you think, how you feel. I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. And hopefully you'll be around to make my life comfortable. You got to make him uncomfortable before he's going to move. Tammy, thoughts?
Oh, I concur. On so many, I get calls from guys, and the guys that are calling, they're always in crisis because somebody is going, I've had it. Or my job, my family, there's something crisis, and
Church.
that's yeah. Well, but it's absolutely, now the pain of change is less than the pain of doing what oh, giving lips. I am an
No,
addict.
the
I'm an
pain.
addict.
Oh, the pain of doing what I am doing is greater than the pain of change. So I don't want to
Yes,
be in this pain anymore. So I'll go through the
correct.
lesser pain of change, but it has
Right.
to
It
hurt
is.
enough. And as
Yes.
long as you sit there and go, well, I hope he goes to a group sometimes, it doesn't hurt enough.
Or I don't want to trigger him and make him relapse, so I'm not going
Mm.
to set a boundary. I hear that a lot too. It's like, it's not your fault, not your problem, it's his. So, okay,
Well,
next, go
maybe I
ahead.
need to speak to that briefly.
Okay,
And I will
please.
say this every time I ever get the chance. So I wrote a book about this called Pro-Dependence, which is a book about sort of an anti-codependency book. It says that you just loved us. There wasn't something wrong with you for loving us or sticking with or hanging with us. You loved us because you loved us and you wanted to stay with us. So I'm not really a fan of all that codependency stuff. So, oh, I lost the question, Tim, and I wanted to respond to
Put
part
it
of
in
it.
answer. It's in the answered section.
I
If
don't know
you
how to read
click
the
to,
answer section.
well, if you go to the bottom of the answered
Oh,
section,
answered, I see.
yeah.
Oh,
So
I'm
it
at the
said it's
bottom.
been a
I
year
get it.
since it's been a year since he found out he was an SA. So that's what
Right.
that question
I
was.
think we kind of covered that. I mean, if
Yeah.
someone is not motivated
I
to
was just
change,
talking, yeah, I was talking about, yeah, okay. We've got bunches more. So I'm of a trade partner. The D date was October of 2020. So 2, 3 months ago. However, this is not the first time. I have a quick question. What is the recovery rate for porn addicts and sex addicts, especially the person is weak and does not have strong wills to stop his addictive behaviors? He is also a chain smoker who tried to quit many times and failed. I don't have any trust for this person, but I truly care about this person. I don't know what to do because I don't want to ruin my life either.
well, as I said before, none of us are able to do this by ourselves. If we could, we would. So you can't help him, but we can. Others can. Therapists can, 12-step programs can, treatment centers can. There are a lot of places. And by the way, this is a challenge for you guys a lot of times because you love us and you hate us and you want us to get well and you want us to go out the door. And we have a name for this. We call it ambivalent love, which is 1 minute you're looking at us and we're making dinner, we're doing whatever we're doing. You're like, oh, that's sweet. He's really, and then the next minute you're saying, wait, this person screwed up my life. I hate them. And this is part of the craziness that you partners go through is sometimes you love us and sometimes you hate us. And it's really hard for you to keep all that in your head. So this gentleman you're talking about, when he tried to quit smoking, did he go to a doctor? Did he go to a smoking center? Did he go to, what did he do to get help for the smoking problem? Because I would imagine if it wasn't important enough for him to stop, he would have found a resource that would have helped him stop. I went years and I tried to stop, and then I finally found something that helped and I was able to quit. But you know what made me stop? I never told you this, Tammy. My husband said, if you keep smoking, I don't want to be in a relationship. I can't stand this anymore. I don't want to kiss you. I don't want to be around you. And that, I don't think he would have done that, but I realized that it wasn't just me. And of course you think, by the way, when you're a smoker, oh, well, I'll just leave the window open. They won't smell it, or I'll chew some gum, all that denial, So all I'm really saying is that men in particular, we like to do things on our own. We like to figure it out. We like to think we understand and we can do it, but we need help. And in this particular area, this man needs to reach out for help with his addictions and so I'd have a lot of hope for him if you saw him going to therapy, going to support groups, showing up at our treatment center, that he actually says, I'm doing what I need to do, and you see it. That's change, that's hope. The rest of it is just words.
Correct. Do mother and mesh men and sex addicts have some sort of strange trauma bond with their mothers?
Yes. Did you want me to say more?
Well, I was just saying, Dr.
I'm
Rob
just
did
kidding you.
Dr. Rob did a podcast with Dr. Ken Adams on sex, love, and
Who wrote
addiction.
the book? He wrote
the book, Silently Seduced and When He's Married to Mom. So yes, and it's complicated. We've had a number of clients who have struggled with those issues at our treatment program.
I work with.
Okay.
Almost everyone.
There you go. Okay.
So thank you, Tammy. Let me briefly say what a maternal enmeshment is and how it makes us into sex addicts. I grew up with maternal enmeshment. I was my mom's best friend. She turned to me when she had questions. She turned to me when she had problems in her marriage. She complained to my dad about my dad to me. So I wasn't really my mother's child. I was more like her brother, boyfriend. She would talk to me about my parents' sex life. All of that. She would tell my mom, she would tell me she didn't like my dad and what was wrong with him. And so in essence, what I learned to do as a child and as a young adult was take care of other people. I learned that my happiness was to see what you need and become that for you. What I never learned was what is in here, what makes me happy, what brings me joy. And in fact, most addicts will say, I don't really have any hobbies. I don't really fun. Let's see. Well, I look at porn. Well, I work a lot. Well, I like playing with my kids. No, I mean fun, like a ball game. Or no, I don't do much of that. Games we're not particularly good at fun. So why am I saying all this?
A strange trauma bond with their mothers.
Yes.
No, it's at the top of the open one.
Okay. So if I grew up learning that the way I get my needs met is by making someone else happy, by seeing them smile, by seeing them be pleased with me, and I don't know anything about what's inside of me, then I might walk around the world trying to do things that will make people pay attention to me, validate me, want me, and all those things that I didn't get when I was growing up, because what I had to do was take care of someone else. So really what addicts are, and the sex addict in particular, is we have the saying, we have a hole in our soul. And what that really means is we walk around looking for someone to give us what he never got. I want more nurturing, more affection, I want someone to take my pain away. I want someone, I want a mom is what we really want. And unfortunately, the struggle that we have, it's too late for mom. We're 25, we're 40, whatever it is. And so we have to take on the struggle for ourselves. But it comes from not knowing what is inside of us, because no one ever really asked. And what we learn makes us happy is when we make that other woman or man happy, and that makes us happy. But what really brings us joy for ourselves, we don't have a clue. So this pattern of not getting my needs met, not knowing what my needs are, not even knowing what I'm feeling, but knowing that I really have to be there for this person, make this person happy, take care of them. It could be dad, it doesn't have to be mom, that this experience of my focus being on the outside from day one, when what I'm really supposed to learn as a child is that I am the center of the universe and I am the most important person to everybody. That's what a child should learn. But if they don't, they go around looking the rest of their lives for the attention, the validation, the support, and the listening they never got. And if your damage, emotional damage was fairly early, you're going to look at it for it in really primitive ways. Like you're going to fill yourself with food. You're going to fill yourself with sex, really early experiences that feel like they're feeding us, but they really aren't. So yes, it's a very long, complicated issue, but the bottom line is I don't really know who I am. I don't really know what I want. I don't really know what's important to me. All I know is having a lot of sex and trying to make my family happy and shut them up so they don't need anything from me, and having this balancing act. Now, some of you will feel that we absolutely understand your needs. And yeah, we can become whatever you need. We learned that early. But learning what we need and how to ask for it and then tolerate if you get, this is a mystery for us. And by the way, this came up in treatment today because Tammy, there was a guy there who was saying something like, I don't know what the question was. And he was like, well, I've tried this and I've tried that and he tried everything in the world to get better. And the thing is, I said, have you tried reaching out to other people? And he's like, he felt like a failure because he's tried so hard to get better and he's read every book and he's done, but he isn't getting better. And the truth is, he's never going to get better when he tries to fix it on his own. So anyway, I'm going on. And we have time for one more quick question?
We
Or do we
do.
need to stop?
No, we do. But I want to tag on to what you just said, because I have said before, if you could just read a book, everybody would read a book and they'd be all better. That's
Right.
not what happens. So there's so many good questions, but this top one is, this is about kids and fetishes. So I really do want to address this. I want to address all of them. I'm sorry, we won't get to. A couple
But
with
you can, we will show up. We're back.
Yes,
So.
we're back. So come back. Put it in early. A couple with long-term alcoholism recovery. Husband has 4 years in SAA. Teen kids raised well aware of alcoholism and recovery treatment and their potential predisposition. Sexual addiction is not openly acknowledged, never sure of what or how much to tell, and one cannot take back what is said. All agree. So teen tells us that they have a fetish. We don't know what it is or what it entails or what we even need to know versus what is private. What or how much to tell the children. If either has an addiction or unmanageability, we would want to get them help and if possible, prevent addiction via knowledge or awareness. So you want me to stop there a second?
Yeah, that's plenty. I don't think we even need the rest of it. So I don't think that children should hear about their parents' sexual lives. Even if it's been a great lesson from you and you've learned from it. Alcohol, sure. Drugs, sure. But no child wants to think about their parent having sex. I mean, it's just not something we should be thinking about. And you don't want to put that in our brains. And then on top of that, if we did it by betraying mom or betraying dad, then you guys, the kids take sides, they get involved. And then you get enmeshment with children because now they're worried about what you're doing and how rather than you're being focused on them. So now I'm going to get back to the question because don't tell me, Tam, I'm going to get this. Okay, so fetishes. So thank you, Tam. I knew you wanted to help, but I really, my poor old brain. So I said that children shouldn't learn about our sexual lives. And sometimes, by the way, an angry partner will say, let me tell you what dad did, or mom. It's really not fair to them. And if you've done it, I'm sorry, because your children have to live that forever. And you do have to be careful. It's a lonely place for partners because if you tell your mom, then every Thanksgiving when you're both there, she's going to remember, so it's hard for you to tell. But your children's sexual lives are not their own business. If someone is, and I don't know the age, Tammy, of this person, it's different if they're 17 or 18 as opposed to under 17. But a fetish it's an object-driven pattern of sexual arousal. So some people are into panties, some people are into shoes, some people are into leather or some people want a whip in their hand. That's a fetish. So fetishes are fixed and pretty much unchanging by 18 to 20. So if someone has a fetish in their late teens, it's going to probably be with them the rest of their lives. A fetish is not an addiction. There's nothing wrong with fetishes. If you and your partner want to play dress up and hit each other and you're not hurting and you have agreements and you got a safe word, I don't care what you do in your bed together. That's up to you. So, fetishes are when you bring an object that isn't necessarily sexual, like a pair of shoes, and all of a sudden you sexualize it and you really enjoy it as a part of your sexual life. So I don't know what your son is saying, but fetishes are not bad. They're not, oh my God, we have to fix that. Fetishes are more like, how do you come to terms with that? How do you live with that? Do you feel okay with it? Do you enjoy sex without it? So if I had a son who said to me, I have this going on, I would want to know all about it. I mean, that kid who's open enough and willing enough to feel safe enough with me as a parent to talk about their sexual life. I wouldn't be talking about mine at all, but I'm saying I so want to support you in that. And I don't mind, you can tell me anything. And if it's something we have to figure out, let's figure it out. And so if they're willing, the other option is send them to a therapist and say, you might need a safe person to talk with us about, and you may not want to talk to me, but I just want you to know. And then I know a lot of sex therapists around the country. We can find someone for you to see. And by the way, I'm going to say this before we stop. If you're looking for a referral to a therapist or a treatment program, whatever, you can write me, rob@seekingintegrity.com. You can write Tammy at seekingintegrity.com, TAMI. We get no kickbacks from treatment centers. We get no kickbacks from therapists. All we do is refer because we have had a lot of experience and we know the right places and the right people for the issues that we deal with. So anyway, it's an honor to be with you, Tammy. Thank you. It's not the Dr. Rob show. It's the Rob and Tammy show, by the way.
Well, yes, we love being here. I so appreciate everybody that was here. And I just have to say, one person tagged in, doesn't work, betrayed lesbian here. So just, yeah. So it isn't just,
What doesn't work? Oh, turning into a lesbian. Being a lesbian doesn't mean you're not going to have, they're not going to objectify people and cheat on them. Right. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
And ladies, I didn't mean to upset you about men. And I'm not necessarily talking about your men's behavior, but this is how we are. We like to look, we like to think. Talk to you guys later.
Come back next week. Thanks. Bye.
Be with health. Be at peace.